All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 352 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. I'm super excited for the content we got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and try to get married as young as possible in a healthy way. I'm your host, Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I attempt to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be doing something that I think is super fun. My wife sent me a thread, that is really interesting. It's basically this guy asking people what their reasons for getting a divorce were. And we're going to go through them and basically sort them into two categories, either an acceptable reason for a divorce with a question mark after it, and then an unacceptable reason for a divorce. And the reason I put a question mark after the acceptable reason for a divorce is because I don't think there are many. And I think that the litmus test that I'm going to be using is actually the words of Jesus in Mark chapter 10, where he discusses basically the permanence of marriage and what God has joined together, no man should separate. And basically he's telling the Pharisees that the reasons that in the past they had deemed acceptable to withdraw from a marriage were not actually good enough reasons to do that. And so we're going to be basically sorting them into two categories. And I think what's going to happen is a lot of the reasons that you're going to see these people getting divorced for are really not reasons for divorce, but are instead things that you need to work through as a team, instead of basically quitting and giving up because the going got rough. But first, let's read Mark chapter 10. The subheading is Jesus' teaching about divorce. And obviously, as young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family, you need to know what your Lord says when it comes to the relationship that you believe you're called to enter. So I think this is a great passage to start off with, just to, because I think a lot of people don't really have a serious enough concept of marriage and divorce. They think of divorce as an option. They don't think of it as something that's not an option. They think of it as something that, you just do if the marriage doesn't quote unquote work out. And so we're going to just review what Jesus has to say on divorce and here. And I know this, I do want to give the caveat, the disclaimer here that I'm not slamming anyone who's had a divorce, and I'm definitely not trying to sound high and mighty on this issue or even be condemning in any way to somebody who disagrees with me. I'm just sort of giving my opinion, A, for the benefit of those who can benefit from it, particularly people who are like me and are moving towards a similar marriage as myself and who would like to be in the kind of marriage that I am in now. And then B, for my future children, if they end up being a lot like me in the relational world, this, I hope, will be of great help to them as they navigate the dating world and begin to find a partner to live their life with and talk about difficult issues with their partner. So that's my purpose in making this. But in verse number 1, Jesus says, or Mark says, setting out from there, Jesus went to the region of Judea beyond the Jordan. Crowds gathered to him again, and as he was accustomed, he once more began to teach them. And some Pharisees came up to Jesus, testing him, and began questioning him whether or not it was lawful for a man to divorce his wife. This question is still being, debated today. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? And he answered and said to them, "What did Moses command you?" They said, "Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send his wife away." But Jesus said to them, "Because of your hardness of heart, he wrote you this commandment. But from the beginning of creation, God created them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no person is to separate." And this verse, verse 9, is very strong. Because, when I hear this verse, Jesus seems to have a very clear stance on divorce, and that is what God has joined together, no man is to separate. And so, I think a lot of the reasons that we're going to see in this thread that you're going to see in just a minute on your screen are going to be basically a man separating something that God has joined together or attempting to, and kind of the consequences that come from that. And so I think it's going to be interesting. Again, no shade to any of these people or anybody even who disagrees with me on these particular issues. And by the way, I'm going to sort them here on the screen into acceptable reasons for divorce and unacceptable reasons for divorce. And again, the question mark after acceptable is because I'm still deciding if there are acceptable reasons for divorce. Now, I do think that, obviously this gets into some really, emotionally charged issues with like abuse or infidelity and things like that. And those are, I think, the reasons that I think elsewhere in Scripture divorce is actually, what's the word? I want to be very careful how I phrase my words here, but I think Jesus does later say that any man who divorces a woman, except in the case of sexual immorality, commits adultery with any woman he's with after. But again, he throws that clause in there, except in the case of sexual immorality, for a reason. And I think that's because it's such a serious break of the vows, of the marriage vows, that if you were, he's not telling you to get a divorce if that happens, but he's saying if you do, I believe this is what he's saying, that you're not committing adultery if you marry again. And I think Paul goes on later to affirm that. Though I think he says before he does affirm that he doesn't have a direct command from the Lord, but that he's giving you his personal opinion. We'll investigate all those verses as we go, but Mark 10 is where I'm starting from here, where Jesus says, what God has joined together, no person is to separate. And that is pretty clear. I mean, that's a pretty strong stance on divorce. So let's go through these. And I'm going to share this tab instead so you can see that. It should be up on your screen now. Let me check to make sure. Yep. Okay. You can see it. Let's go ahead and get started. The first one, he said, the person who put out this thread said this: people that divorced for reasons other than cheating. What was the last straw? So he's asking them, what was the reason? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? What was the reason that you ended up divorcing your partner? And he's addressing this to people who have had divorces. He has like 1.4 thousand comments, like 247 reshares, 228. This message has been sent to 228 people and it's been liked 8,300 times about. Wow. So he got a lot of feedback on this little thread. This person says a lack of intimacy and affection was the reason that they left their marriage. Also, keeping secrets and being too mysterious. Felt like I didn't know my husband. So this is a woman who left her marriage because of lack of intimacy and affection. Also because there were secrets being kept. He was being mysterious and she felt like she didn't know him. All terrible things. So lack of intimacy is not a good thing. It does all kinds of damage to marriage. A lack of affection is a terrible thing, does all kinds of damage to marriage. Secrets do all kinds of damage to marriage. And spouses need to feel like they know each other. All of this is terrible. However, I don't think this is an acceptable reason to get a divorce. I'll explain why, but first let's put it in lack. Let's put in lack of affection. And we'll go down. Well, actually, let's go back over and we'll put lack of intimacy in a separate category. Both of those are different. But again, I don't think either one is a reason to get a divorce. Starting off, I think lack of affection and intimacy, number one, are things that you can overcome. Okay. And so I know that it's difficult. I know that it's hard, but I don't think that throwing in the towel and giving up is ever the solution to having a truly affectionate and intimate life with another person. And so I think that if you want those things, instead of giving up, you need to put in the work for those things, because it's never just going to happen with somebody magically. There's always going to be a huge amount of work involved in that. And so, so don't throw in the towel, don't quit, don't give up just because it's difficult. Or you'll never actually get the gold. You'll never actually get the great thing that is in store for you if you do. That Paul does discuss, I believe in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the importance of not, what's the word? What's his exact words? I don't want to mess his words up here. Basically, he says that you need to come together regularly so as to not be tempted by your weakness. And so that your weakness is not a source of temptation for you. And I think that is wisdom. That's number one. That's one reason why it is important to have intimacy and affection in your marriage. And also it's just a better way to live. You definitely want that as something in your marriage, because that's a better way. That's a happier marriage than, a marriage without it. And so definitely think that's true there. So it's not something that you should give up on. It's not something you should quit because you're not currently experiencing. It's something that you should work towards with your partner. Because again, that's going to be a difficulty in any marriage you have. In serious cases where this has been a lot of an issue, I still don't think you're excused from bailing on them, though, because you did give your word to this person before God and man, a crowd full of witnesses, that you would stay with them forever, for better or worse, richer or poor, sickness and health, until death. And so, and again, with using Jesus's words here as the litmus test to decide whether or not this is an acceptable reason to divorce, he doesn't seem to give any allowance for that in this particular passage. He does talk about sexual immorality, but later in other passages, I think Matthew 5, he discusses that, but he does not say that because of a lack of intimacy anywhere in scripture. I don't think it even suggests that you don't have a right to bail from your marriage. You need to fix the problem, not just quit when it gets difficult. Because again, yeah, that could happen with anything. This person left because she said nothing was wrong, but there wasn't butterflies. I wanted butterflies, happiness with my best friend, lover, etc. I had a dream of what my husband would be like when I was a little girl and teenager, and he didn't fit that mold. My immediate thought is, why marry him? But she says changed after we got married and had a kid. Oh, she says she changed. Okay. I then met my forever husband, and he's everything I've ever wanted. Never settle, ladies. There's someone with everything that you want and need out there. Gosh, this one triggers me the most so far. She says right here, there was nothing wrong with my marriage, but there wasn't butterflies. So she basically just openly admitted that she left the marriage where the man was doing nothing wrong. I think that is literally crazy. Let me know if you disagree through the YouTube comments or by sending me a private message on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, wherever you hear this platform. I would love to hear your opinion. And I'm not slamming anyone again who disagrees with me on this, but that seems to me like an incredibly immature thing to end a marriage for. Like, butterflies are the result of good choices. If you're not feeling butterflies, maybe start making better choices. You don't just quit. Okay. If you want butterflies back, you probably need to start spending more time together. You probably need to start engaging in physical intimacy more. You probably need to start having some affection. You probably need to start doing things like spending more of your time together. I think I already said that one. Because if you're not doing those things, for you to expect butterflies, I think is kind of crazy, because if you'll remember, the reason that you fell in love with this person was because all of those things were present. So you need to make sure they stay present in your marriage if you want the result of those things. So don't quit. Don't give up. Again, I think that's a terribly immature thing to leave a marriage for. Let's put lack of butterflies. I'm going to put that in quotes because I don't really know. That's just kind of vague. So, but again, that's definitely in the unacceptable reason to end a marriage category. Just because you're not feeling something in the moment does not mean that you should bail. Again, anybody who's invested in something long-term, you've got to have the commitment and willingness to stick around through the hard things, or you'll never get to the goal at the end. And so, yeah, unbelievable. Sheesh. Where in the world is this one? This person says, I'd driven for hours, was exhausted, and fell asleep on the couch. He woke me up, led me to bed, and used my lifeless body like a blow-up doll. When he finished, he had the nerve to ask why I didn't say no. Unbelievable. That's pretty crazy, and that's the worst one yet, but still not, I don't think, grounds for divorce. That's something that this guy needs. That's a serious problem he has that he needs to fix. And also, another thing I want to say is people who use each other like this, first of all, that sounds kind of like assault, what she's describing. Let's go back and read that again. Where's she at? Here it is. Yeah. That sounds kind of like assault. Somebody who's assaulting their spouse is clearly not on that person's team. And so obviously this woman needs to keep herself safe. So I'm not in any way saying that she should stay in a house with this guy who's literally crazy. But people who get to this point, it's like the result of a billion bad decisions leading up to that point. It's not like somebody just cracks and does this. And it's also not like, I don't know that people, I'm skeptical. Like the woman in the previous example said that he changed after we got married and had a kid. I would imagine this woman right here once believed that her husband would never do this. But then again, I'm like, I'm kind of skeptical on this. How much do people actually change in this way? Like, can you know all you need to know about somebody before you get married? I think you can. And so I don't want to excuse, like, personal responsibility is a thing. If you marry somebody who clearly has serious issues in how they view other people, that's a big red flag that you need to consider before marrying somebody like this. And so because that person's very, very dangerous. And so clearly, I would never recommend anybody marry somebody who sees other people as objects that to be used in order to get, either sexual gratification or anything else, like just selfish. You need to be very careful of people like that. But she would probably say that he changed. She at one time was not like that. But again, gosh, I feel like this is such a complicated issue because this is the result of a million bad decisions. And it's almost like if you don't let it get this bad, that's never an actual issue for you guys. Like, I don't want you to be afraid of your partner waking up one day and your partner's just an insane psychopath who doesn't care about you and is only interested in using you for personal gratification. because that's not how it works. You find yourself in this situation because of a series, like a thousand bad choices leading up to this moment on both sides, probably. And so, yeah. And again, all the stories here are only from one side. So it's not like I'm presenting, some argument for whether or not they should get a divorce. I'm just reacting to basically what they're saying. But again, assault, if this was an actual case of assault, I'd say that was probably I'm never going to tell somebody to get a divorce, because I don't know that would be morally correct. But I will say, like, you definitely should not put yourself in a situation where you're around somebody who's hurting you. So there needs to be like that space there until that person is either better, or I don't know. This is an issue. This is a very serious issue that I am not going to pretend to have some sort of groundbreaking advice on. I have no idea what I would do here if I were in that situation. But gosh, that would be in the more serious category. So that would be, in theory, an acceptable reason to get a divorce. As you can see, these others here, though, lack of affection, lack of intimacy, lack of butterflies, these are problems that, again, have a solution. And the crazy thing about this is all the problems that have been presented in this thread, there are marriages that have survived every single one of these problems, and not just survived, but have come out on the other side stronger and better than ever, and have built something from the ashes of their nuptial failure that is really to be admired. And so I don't want to act like there are marriages that are beyond hope, because there absolutely is hope for your marriage, even if it's hard. But what I'm trying to tell you young people is, like, be really careful before you even enter the marriage. Be careful about who you're entering it with. Make sure you know everything you need to know about this person in order to enter this marriage. Because that's going to prevent all these problems, these serious problems. Like, listen to what she just described, that you could potentially have down the road if you have less wisdom and foresight going into this serious decision. So yeah, this person says the love was lost. I think that's bullcrap. But again, I think that's such a powerless statement. The love was lost. It's like, buddy, you lost it. You need to make better choices if you want to keep the sparks alive. He says, it felt like we were roommates. Our intimacy was struggling for the final 2 years. Intimate maybe once every 2 or 3 months. I kept getting rejected, and it was hurting me emotionally because I fell in love, not just intimacy in the bedroom, just intimacy in general. No kissing, holding, cuddling, things like that. But whenever I asked, it was always, I just want to, blank. I'm not going to read that online. He says, realized then I wanted better for myself and didn't want to be unhappy the rest of my life. Sheesh. Yeah, that's a problem. But it's not, again, a reason for you to bail when you've committed to somebody to stay with them for the rest of their life. Like, you looked this woman in the face and said, I'm never going to leave you no matter what. And then now you're bailing. And the reason is the love was lost. Like, get it back. What are you doing, man? Get it back. I'm going to put love lost. Like, or maybe I'll put fell out of love. I hear that one a lot. Fell out of love. People say that all the time. It's like, well, fall back into love, man. Take some personal responsibility for the mess you've created. And again, you don't fall out of love. You don't wake up and just fall out of love. Falling out of love is the result of bad decision after bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, over and over and over, until finally you wake up and realize, holy cow, I'm in a real pickle because I've been making some bad choices. So make better choices, man. That's not an acceptable reason to leave. Because, and here's one reason why, because life is full of things life is full of challenges. Life is full of ups and downs. Life is full of days where you're not feeling the best. And so if you make decisions just because you're not feeling the best, or feeling the love, or feeling the whatever tonight, you're never going to get the gold at the end, man. You're never going to make it past the barrier in your way to get what's the true joy that's on the other side. The Bible says that Jesus endured the cross for the joy set before him. He didn't just quit because it was hard and because it was he wasn't feeling it. He wasn't feeling great. I mean, he was feeling bad, and he pushed through because of the joy set before him there. That's what you need to run for, man. You don't just quit and lay down and give up. That's a sure way to failure. Anyone will tell you that. Anybody who's done anything of any value. This person said, I had basically forgiven the cheating when we were married. I had basically forgiven the cheating, and we were in marriage counseling. The therapist gave him homework, which was to provide access to his phone whenever I asked or wanted it. The next day or a couple days later, not sure, I asked for his phone and he told me he had lost it. I immediately knew this wasn't true because he never changed his voicemail to tell callers he had lost his phone, and he made no moves to replace it. I played along, though, and when we went back to counseling, they continue here, our therapist looked far more disappointed in him than I did. I declared I was through with the marriage, provided my reasoning of why how I knew he was lying. He, of course, didn't want it to end, and when we got into the car to go home, he produced the phone from his coat pocket. Dang. Sheesh. So yeah, but I mean, I'm not, again, all these things are terrible. Like these things that people are describing, have happened to them and their spouse are just terrible. I don't want to excuse any of these things by saying that they're unacceptable reasons for divorce. I don't want to excuse them as okay to have in your marriage. Like, these people clearly have problems. Sheesh. But it becomes very difficult. Like, guys, do you see my dilemma? It becomes very difficult to say, you should get divorced because of that. Because again, I'm getting stuck right here on the words of Jesus. I'm getting stuck right here. And obviously Jesus's words trump everything. So, I mean, like, and I think what Jesus is getting at here is marriage is like serious. It's like a commitment that you make no matter what. It doesn't come with clauses. It doesn't come with exceptions. It's not like, I'm here until death do us part unless, or I'm here until death do us part if, or I'm here till death do us part until it. There's no exceptions. I think he's really underlining here what God, when he says in verse 9, what God has joined together, no person is to separate. I think he's talking about, like, this is a merging, like in scripture later, Paul describes it as a merging of lives, a oneness, two people becoming one flesh. And earlier in Genesis, it's talked about in that way too. So, like, this is a big deal. And so I don't think that these reasons these people are giving, it's like, this is the symptom. This is the symptom of a much deeper problem. Like, this spouse hiding his phone from his partner, that's a symptom. That's not actually the reason this marriage ended. This is the latest, manifestation of some terrible things underneath that's causing this marriage to fail. And instead of addressing those major problems with this marriage, they're just quitting because of this symptom. And it's like, you've got to, again, it should never get to that point. It should never get to this point, because this is the result of a million bad decisions leading up to another. Yeah, let's continue looking at these though. These are interesting. They're funny. But like, I don't know. It's just, some of them are sad. Some of them are just sad. This person said that, I think, it's a picture of a girl, so I'm assuming she was married to a guy. It says he was a porn addict and gaming on a daily basis and did not help with chores or nothing. While she might have bad grammar, I do totally understand her situation there. I don't understand it, but I imagine that would be super hard. And actually, porn addiction, I kind of define that as cheating. And so infidelity, this might be a good time to pull up, let's see here, BibleHub.com, and then I'm going to search divorce in the top here and look at all the times where Jesus discusses divorce. And let's go down to Matthew 5 right here. And then we'll go to the NASB translation and we'll search divorce. And then right here, here's the clause that I wanted to highlight for you. Jesus says, now it is said, whoever sends his wife away is to give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. So he's condemning both men and women who have left their marriage and slept with another person. He's condemning that as adultery, except in cases where the marriage was abandoned for the reason of sexual immorality. And I think he throws that in there here because sexual immorality is really a violation of the marriage in itself. It's really like a partner has left the marriage in itself. And so it can't be wrong for the person who was abandoned, who was cheated on, who was neglected, who was, the victim of this. It cannot be wrong for them to remarry, I think is what he's saying here. And Paul goes on again to discuss this later. Let me see if I can find those. I just realized I didn't share the tab for you guys there. Here it is. That's where Jesus says this, and his clause is right here if you want to look at it. I'm going to find Paul's discussion on this, though. He also talks about it. Let's read I think it's in 1 Corinthians 7. I don't even think I have to Google it here. Let's just go down to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, which is one of the most reviewed chapters for sure on this show because of how much Paul discusses marriage in this chapter. And then let's search, divorce. And right here he says, but to the rest I say, not the Lord, that if any brother has an unbelieving wife and she consents to live with him, he must not divorce her. And if any woman has an unbelieving husband, he consents to live with her, she must not divorce her husband. But to the married I give these instructions, not I, but the Lord, that the wife is not to leave her husband, but if she does leave, she must remain unmarried, else be reconciled to her husband, and that husband is not to divorce his wife. So again, pretty strong instructions against divorce here by Paul. Like every time you see divorce discussed in scripture, it's pretty it's pretty expressly condemned as a bad idea and not a good thing. So it's just like, I thought there was another time he discussed this, though. I wonder if it's just not in this passage. But my point basically in showing you this was sexual immorality is kind of exactly like leaving a marriage, because it's a violation of the marriage vow. And so that person's kind of already left the marriage, if that makes sense. And so I think, let's put infidelity. Let's just put sexual immorality, because that's the scriptural language. And then also, I think that would encompass like cheating, infidelity, adultery, pornography addiction, things like that. Now, again, I'm not telling people to leave their marriage if there is pornography addiction or something like that. I'm not definitely not saying that. I'm saying that, that's potentially presented by scripture as something that you've already left your marriage by doing, if that makes sense. And again, I am not an expert on this, guys. I'm learning just as much as all of you. So please do not, think that I'm speaking arrogantly or here or something. I'm just reading the words of Jesus and trying to figure out what I hate even to say the right way, because it's almost like it is the right way, but the reason people find themselves in these terrible positions is, like I said earlier, because they've made so many bad choices leading up to the moment where it really is so hard to make a good one, But porn addiction, not helping your partner, those are very serious things, and I'm not excusing them by saying that you shouldn't get a divorce. In fact, and I'm even putting the sexual immorality in potentially an acceptable reason to get a divorce, but these are just kind of my thoughts, guys. I don't know, because some reasons you'll like see people online, like some of these, like down here especially, we're probably gonna get into some that are like, it's just totally unreasonable reasons to divorce a person. It's not even a big deal. It's just a symptom of a problem that they're not fixing, and they're just leaving each other because they don't have commitment. They have commitment issues. But like assault, sexual immorality, I think those are big things. Like, sheesh. This person says, he called me a cheating whore for having lunch with a male friend that I've known since elementary school. All three of us went to school together. I'm going to put insults in the unacceptable category. And a lot of you, I'm sure, might react to that because, again, this is a very emotionally charged issue. And I'm not saying, this guy's clearly being, a terrible person to his wife. And I'm not saying in any way that he is not being a terrible person to his wife. But what I am saying is, insults are not a reason to leave a marriage. Now, I do think that, if imagine this. The reason insults are such a terrible thing to have in your marriage is because it's a blatant admission that you're not on the same team anymore. It's a blatant admission that you are actually trying to, harm the other person. You're wishing evil on them. You have ill intent for them. You're not only not on their same team, you're actually on a team against them. The person that you actually swore in front of God and people to be on the side of forever until you die, you are now actually assaulting with your words. And that's the crazy thing about this. It's like these issues that they're describing are such serious things. It's not like it just happens. This is the result I have said this over and over of bad decision after bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And it's almost like, oh gosh, it's just, I struggle to see hope for those marriages. I know there's hope there, but like it really, it makes it hard for me. Makes it hard. And here's another thing. All of these are, again, one side of the story. Like this situation, there could have been, I don't think partners, this is just my opinion, but I don't think a man or a woman should go out with a person of the opposite sex if it's bothering his or her partner. I think that if something's bothering your partner, listen, future young people who are going to be married in the future, if something is bothering your future partner, you need to stop doing that right away. I don't care if there's nothing wrong with it. I don't care if you're in the right and you're doing nothing, you're living righteously and you're not doing anything wrong. If it's bothering your partner, you get rid of it, because your ultimate priority is protecting your marriage from all this dysfunction. And you're trying to make your spouse comfortable, not uncomfortable. You're trying to make your spouse's life easier, not harder. You're trying to protect your spouse from anything that would bring them harm. And so to choose a relationship with some random elementary school friend over your wife or husband's ability to be comfortable, I think is just a blatant admission that you don't even care about your marriage. It's just saying, there are things that I care about more than my marriage, and I don't really, it's not my top priority to protect you, honey. That's basically, I think, what they're saying with their actions, and actions speak louder than words. So even if they're saying, I care about what you're saying, and then they're doing all this stuff that bothers their partner, it's like, do you really? So I think both of these people are doing something wrong. Like the wife should not be going out with this dude if it's bothering her husband, and the husband should never, for any reason, in a million years, for the rest of his life, ever talk to his wife like she is a whore or like she's cheating. For that, I mean, it's just like he should never call her a whore. Is really what I should say. That is just, ooh, gosh, man. This person says everyone is blaming the other for breakup or divorce, but they don't say what was their fault. It's easy to see the fault, others' fault, but not ours. I mean, that's true. Again, all of these are one side of the story. It's not like I'm not telling these people like whether or not they should have gotten a divorce. I'm not saying that. I'm talking to you guys as young believers, and I'm measuring kind of these scenarios against the words of Jesus when it comes to divorce, and seeing whether or not there are acceptable reasons to get divorced. And I'm listing the unacceptable reasons that people have gotten divorced in the past. Let's see. Let's go down a little bit here. This one says, the first marriage she had, I couldn't live with a narcissist anymore. It was always all about him. And the second marriage, he didn't want to grow up, evolve, better himself, too insecure. So this woman has had 2 divorces and is somehow acting like both were not her fault. I think this is very arrogant, and you don't want to take a marriage advice from somebody who's, run the experiment multiple times, failed all times, and at the end is still blaming other people for their failed marriage. So just be very careful taking advice from people like this. Again, you need to take advice from people who are where you want to be currently, and not people who shipwrecked on the way there, because it's just common sense. Didn't want to spend the rest of my life this person says, didn't want to spend the rest of my life with someone who was too tired to dance with me. It's like, okay, don't care. Too tired. Didn't want to dance. That's an unbelievable reason to leave your marriage. They didn't want to dance. Now, again, I think the husband should dance with his wife. If it's a big deal to her, he should be on her team. He should be fighting for her and doing what she desires from him. But again, if he doesn't, that's not a reason to leave him. It's like Jesus doesn't give clauses. Again, let's look at this tab. Just going back to Mark chapter 10, verse 9. Therefore, what God has joined together, no person is to separate. They are in the verse prior, he says, there are no longer 2, but one flesh. You're one. You don't just tear yourself in half because there was a dancing conflict. Like it's just not an acceptable reason. It's an unacceptable reason to have a divorce. And again, it's a symptom of a root issue that is far deeper and more profound. And that's that you're not even on the same team as your partner anymore. You're not doing things that she really thinks you should do, that she really feels and wants to do with you. And, she's leaving you because of that. Like both of those people are in the wrong. This person is giving a biblical reasoning here. It says, biblically, marriage is meant to be lifelong, Matthew 19:6. And while infidelity is clear ground for divorce, serious issues like abuse and neglect may call for separation. 1 Corinthians 7, 10 through 11, divorce isn't ideal, but God's grace and healing are always available for those who are hurting. Let's look at 1 Corinthians 7, 10 through 11. We're already in 7:10. This is a verse, we've actually already read it right here. It says, "But to the married I give instructions, not I, but the Lord, that a wife is not to leave her husband. But if she does leave, she must remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband, and that the husband is not to divorce his wife." I don't see how that's support for her statement that serious issues like abuse or neglect may call for separation. I don't see how that supports that. Now, I'm not saying she's wrong, but I think she used the wrong verse there. But yeah, marriage is meant to be lifelong. Let's look at Matthew 19, the one she gave there, BibleHub.com, and then we'll look for Matthew 19. Guys, while I'm flipping to this, just think to yourself, like, if all of these reasons that people have gotten divorces for are acceptable, how confident are you in your future partner's ability to stick around? Because, like, if all these things are okay reasons to bail on your own marriage, like, how? It's like it doesn't even mean anything if nobody's able to follow through, and if everybody thinks they can bail at any reason because they're uncomfortable. It's almost like they didn't make a vow at all. It's got to have weight. It's got to have permanence. And then let's look. She gives Matthew 19:6. This is just the same kind of passage. It says, "Some Pharisees came to Jesus, testing him and asking, 'Is it lawful for?'" It's the same thing. It's just told from Matthew's perspective instead of Mark's. But yeah, so they're no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no person is to separate. They said to him, "Why then did Moses command her to give her a certificate of divorce and send her away?" He said to them, "Because of your hardness of heart, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning, it has not been this way. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery." Dang. Those are some strong words. Jesus has a lot of those. He has a lot of those. This person says she divorced her husband because he was so insecure he flipped out and started screaming into a homeless man's face because he dared to smile at me, and I returned it. We had been in counseling for 6 months by then, and I realized it wasn't going to help him. When his mindset was so, I'm not going to say that word, we lovingly divorced, and he traveled the world for a while. He healed and is an amazing partner to his girlfriend now, and we have maintained a close friendship. Gosh. So basically, insecurity is the reason that this woman ended her marriage. Presumably, insecurity. I'm going to add again to the unacceptable reasons to end a divorce or to end your marriage category. Insecurity is a problem that we all struggle with, and this guy's clearly, making some very poor choices. And I feel like every time I tell you, I put something in the unacceptable category, I'm telling these people that I'm excusing their partner's behavior, and I'm not. If that happened, that's literally terrible. That's terrible. But I also don't think that it's grounds for divorce. Is that what's the word? Controversial? I mean, again, because we all sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23, we all mess up. We all royally bomb things. And if you believe you're justified in leaving your partner whenever your partner bombs things, it's almost like no marriage has any hope, friend, because everybody's going to bomb stuff. We're all going to have these terrible days. These issues, the crazy thing is, these people are giving reason, this is not why her husband screaming at a homeless dude, that's not why she left her marriage. She left her marriage because there's a problem under that they never fixed. And they never fixed it. They never fixed it. And so it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And this is the issue that she remembers being the most extreme. This is the moment when she realized, I'm going to choose to divorce this guy. But this isn't the reason. They're all saying this is the reason they left their partner, but it's really not. It's really not. This person said he or she was too young to not be in love. That's just immaturity. Thinking that you you're too young to not be in love. I'm trying to understand what they're saying. I was too young to not be in love. So that they're basically saying I couldn't be by myself. Is that what they're saying? So they got married and they weren't ready to get married. If that's what you're saying, all of that is just immaturity. The solution to immaturity is not bailing and giving up. The solution is laying your life down for your partner. So if you enter a marriage, everyone who enters a marriage has immaturity, okay? And the immaturity, you are then called to lay down your life for your partner, pick up your cross in service of the union, and not bail. And so, yeah, immaturity is not a reason to get a divorce. It's actually a reason to, it's the thing you need to overcome to have a better marriage. And if you overcome it, you've got a better marriage than you did when you started. So it's definitely not a reason to quit. Again, that person's just saying, I'm so immature that I'm going to choose to stay selfish. And even if it means my marriage is going to fail. You know, the biggest stupid lie I think I've heard given out as good marriage advice is don't change for somebody else. That is the biggest load of bullcrap I think I've ever heard in my life. Being a good spouse, a spouse that is serving your wife like Christ served the church, or a spouse who is loving your husband, does not mean like protecting your identity and your autonomy and your independence and your individualism before, you know, your partner's needs. It means basically giving of yourself. It means laying your life down for your partner. It means becoming one with another person, not just protecting your own autonomy and your own wants. That's just basic selfishness. And so to tell people that they should never change for somebody is the biggest mistake. There's so much about me, and there's so much about the next guy and the next guy and the next guy and the next girl and the next girl and the next girl that needs change. Nobody is, you know, above, you know, needing change and reform and pruning, you know? Gosh. He told me I was gay after 8 years of gaslighting me into believing I wasn't good enough. Again, that's an insult. That falls back in this number 6 category of an unacceptable reason for divorce. Insults, that's not the real reason this person left their marriage. They left their marriage because they're not even on the same team as their partner anymore because of a million bad decisions that were made prior to this insult that was lobbed. Gosh. This person said when he put his hands on me, they got a divorce because he put his hands on her. What? That's just weird. That is very weird. And this guy says, yeah, I divorced her when she did the same after I told her to stop and not consented. What? What? Oh gosh, dude, again, it feels like these people right here are just, they're not on the same team as their partner. It's like, I don't know. What has happened? What has happened? I don't know, guys. I don't know. These comments are getting crazy. I'm just kind of scrolling through them, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube, kind of how it's going. But like, sheesh. Unbelievably crazy. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, though. This has been an interesting episode, just sorting these for you. I just realized the screen share thing was not recording there, so you might have to see our list here at the end. Just you might not have seen it throughout the video, but you might be able to see it now at the end. So just to go through it with you, the only things that I have in the acceptable question mark category as acceptable reasons to get divorced are assault and sexual immorality, infidelity, cheating, abuse, stuff like that. In fact, in the assault category, I could probably put abuse, assault or abuse, sexual immorality, or infidelity. And then right here in the unacceptable reasons for divorce category, I have lack of affection, lack of intimacy, lack of butterflies, fell out of love, insults, didn't want to dance, which is so random. I can't believe somebody actually said that was the reason they got divorced. It's really not. Again, there's a problem under that, but insecurity and immaturity. So you can see the list of reasons, and the list of reasons that are of unacceptable reasons to get divorced would go on and on and on. Like if I continue to scroll down this thread, the B column would just get longer and longer and longer, and I have a feeling the A column would just stay right here. It would just stay at 2: assault, abuse, sexual immorality, infidelity, things like that. Those are really the only 2 reasons that I think are potentially acceptable reasons to, get a divorce. And even then, I think it's almost like the problem was way before that, because I don't think that just happened because, there are things leading up to that, that were just awful. Just awful. So, wow, this has been a heavier episode than I originally intended. But what I kind of want you guys to see is that there are infinite reasons that you may want to get a divorce, but those are not good choices because that's the easy way out. And the better choice is choosing to mature and work on those problems with your partner and get stronger and move together through them so that your marriage is stronger on the other side. And so if you quit, you're never going to see the gold and the joy of a truly lasting and intimate relationship with the opposite sex. So don't give up. Don't quit. When you get married, make sure you've discussed all the things that you need to discuss with your partner prior to entering the marriage. Make sure that you know where your partner stands and you're confident in his or her ability to never do any of these things that are absolutely insane. And just make good choices every day so that you don't wake up in 3 years and like hate your partner and you're on opposite teams and you don't even, you're not just don't care about each other. You're actually fighting to the death with each other. That's an insane place to find yourself. That's resentment. That's, ugh. You know, I once heard that there is a marriage therapist out there. I forget his name, but he says he can predict with like 80 or 90% accuracy whether or not a couple's relationship will go the distance just by like a couple minutes of talking with them together. And he says that the reason he can tell is if he detects resentment in their eyes, if they talk to each other with hatred or resentment, if they're on opposite teams, if they basically are out for one another's demise, then their marriage cannot last. And he says basically if that is present, it's something that a marriage cannot overcome and get past. And that's an interesting, hypothesis that I never heard before. So definitely something that you guys consider and take as food for thought. But again, let's just end with the words of Jesus here. I'll share this tab for you. He says again in Mark chapter 10, he says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no person is to separate. That is a very, very clear and serious statement that I hope resonates with you guys and impacts the decisions that you make for the rest of your life. Because it's very serious, guys. It's very serious. So thank you so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed what I've said or appreciated it in any way, reach out and let me know what you thought of it through the link in the show notes. You can send me a personalized audio. Nope, you can't do that anymore. Sorry. Reach out through Instagram or Facebook and send me a message there on the show, Instagram or Facebook, please, and tell me what you thought of this episode, if you had any problems with it or liked anything about it. Would love to hear from you there. It made me feel super connected to you as an audience member, and it would make the podcasting system two-way. You can also follow the show on Instagram and Facebook if you're interested in the content we post there as well. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and I will talk to you next time.